All right, we are back on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. It's been a solid week. Just been had to go do some yard work for my mom today, and then had to work and things like that. But overall, solid week. I'm really excited for this upcoming weekend. Got some soccer games this weekend with my two daughters. They each have a game right around 11 o'clock, so it's going to be chaos trying to get them both to their games and everything like that. But gotta love it, man. How about you? How you doing?
I'm doing well. We got the first T-ball game this weekend, and we have to be there for pictures at 7:15.
Jeez. Wow.
So, so we will see how that turns out.
Yeah,
So,
that's wild. Good deal, man. Well, I mean, a lot to talk to or a lot to talk about and go, get into. So let's hop into it, man. I'm excited to kind of break down some of this recruiting stuff and talk a little Notre Dame off-season football.
right, right. So we got the big commit, Dallas Golden.
Yeah.
Um, I think he's going to be a solid player. It's huge for Notre Dame to get a commit like this going into the summer period. Um,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, a huge commit. Getting a kid out of Tampa, Florida, four-star recruit, really can be kind of a Swiss Army knife for them, honestly. He's ranked as I think the some services have him as like the number 4 safety in the country, all the way down to 12, 15, something like that. But he could also play some corner, maybe get in on the return game. I mean, you look at his stats in high school. I mean, the dude's just a baller with the rock in his hand. I mean, he had almost 1,500 yards rushing last year, 19 touchdowns on the ground, almost 400 yards receiving, another 5 touchdowns through the air. And then he played some lockdown corner. He had a handful of tackles, 5 interceptions, along with 4 pass breakups. So he really, I believe, he's just outside of that top 100 that you really covet those players a lot, but he's still a really good player, exceptional player. If you look on like 24/7, has him at 83, so he's right on that cusp of a top 100 player, which is really what I look at when I'm first grading recruiting classes and things like that. But it's a huge get for Marcus Freeman and this coaching staff. Dude just sounds like a good kid from everything I've read, everything I've watched on him. He's quick. He's got great hand-eye coordination, great foot skills, great hips. He can really play defensive back at a high level, I believe. And on top of that, everything that he says, he sounds like a pretty mature kid for his age. He's talking about faith, family, and Notre Dame. So gotta love that, man. So that's a big time get for them. Obviously, we're still early on in this recruiting process. Okay, these commitments, Notre Dame's had a lot of commitments early in the 2025 class, which is great, but there's still a long way. You guys, we got the Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend. If you're in the Kentucky Derby, we're just rounding the first turn right now. We got a long way to go.
right, and you brought up his offensive numbers in high school. I've heard some other talking heads talk about he could possibly maybe flip and play offense.
There's a potential for that, I think. I don't think that's the plan. I think they view him as a top tier defensive back. You look at his height; he's 6 foot, about 180 pounds. So he's not going to go out and play your outside wide receiver position very much. He's mostly going to be a slot guy, maybe a little bit of a hybrid guy that you hand some jet sweeps and stuff like that too. But I wouldn't really anticipate that. One thing I'm pretty confident is he's going to come in as a defensive back. They're going to bring him in, work him out. They're going to put him through his first spring at defensive back. They're going to see if he can be what they think he can be at defensive back. And then if there's any hesitation or if he, isn't progressing the way they want, maybe they'll look at moving him to the offensive side of the ball. But one thing I can promise you is he's not going to be Travis Hunter. He's not going to be playing both ways. He's not going to be, doing 100 snaps a game, 60 on defense, 40 on offense, or whatever it is. That's just Notre Dame is not going to do that. Marcus Freeman's not going to do that. They have enough talent that they're going to bring in at the wide receiver position that I don't believe he's going to be somebody they view as somebody that's going to turn into an elite weapon on offense.
Now, what about the return game? Could you see him making an impact in the return game right away?
Absolutely. I think that's something that you could do if he is as lethal with the ball in his hands as his high school tape shows him to be, which again, high school tape is just that. So who knows once he gets to college and is playing against like talent, because right now, even in Tampa, Florida, he's head and shoulders above most of the talent he's going up against, right? So when he gets to Notre Dame, they're going to give him, I believe they're going to give him the opportunity to show what he can do in the return game. And if it's punt return, kick return, both, who knows? One thing that I don't like that a lot of programs do is they have this like hesitation to put non-offensive players back there to return. Just because a guy plays defensive back doesn't discount his vision with the ball in his hands. He just might not be physically suited to be a running back or a wide receiver. Like he's better on defense. That doesn't mean if you give him the ball in his hands on a punt return that he can't make guys miss and can't see the field and can't run. I understand why they do it. They do it because they don't want somebody who doesn't practice carrying the football to carry the football, because hypothetically and probably analytically that leads to more fumbles and turnovers and things like that. But if he's an elite athlete with the ball in his hands, then I have no issue with putting him back there to get some reps at returner and get the ball in his hands and let him do what he does.
Right. And I guess my only concern is I think you have to declare it early what his role is going to be. He's either going to be an offensive guy or a defensive guy. So for me, the only pushback I have on that is I don't like it when they try to put freshmen on the field, because ball security throughout college football, through the eons and eons of time, the freshman's number one issues are fumbling. And if he goes back there and has a kick return at Kyle Field and puts the ball on the turf, that's going to be a major, or well, not this year, but whenever he does get to Notre Dame and plays in a game as a freshman, he could cough up the rock, and that is not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't anticipate him being a returner his freshman year, unless he comes in and shows just immense capability that they're willing to do that. But he's going to be, I mean, hopefully, who knows with NIL and transfer portal, but he's going to be at Notre Dame, hopefully playing for 3 or 4 years, right? So I wouldn't anticipate him being a returner right away. But he can practice with the returners. I mean, you got to have backups for returners in case they get hurt and stuff like that. So get them reps and get them going. And then maybe sophomore, junior, redshirt junior year, whatever it is, if he has shown that capability. And also you could see it when hopefully he gets some interceptions early in his career, and he can maybe return some of those, doesn't have to be for a touchdown, but if you see him returning it and you can see what his vision's like, his ball security is like, things like that, that just gives you more confidence to put him back there. So I'm not saying he comes in and is a true freshman starting, corner, safety, whatever. I don't know if that's going to happen. And I don't know if it's going to be that he's the number one returner his freshman year. It all depends on who else you have and the depth at the position and where he's best suited. So I wouldn't worry about, ball security as a freshman unless I'm 100% confident that that's not going to be an issue, because you don't want to risk that, especially in big games, with somebody that's young and can get rattled, can get affected by whatever. But I think if he is the athlete that I believe he is, I think that's something that they could do down the line.
Gotcha. And another big recruit in this class that committed really early is the left-handed quarterback Duce Knight.
Yep. Yeah. So Duce Knight, I mean, huge get for Marcus and the coaching staff there at Notre Dame. That was their guy. He was number one on their board across all positions. They believe in him wholeheartedly. A number 4 quarterback in the nation, number 50 some recruit. Yeah, I believe he's number 59 overall, number 4. Some services have them between like 3 and 8. But you know, a top quarterback in the country, left-handed quarterback, which is, you know, something that I don't think it's a problem, but it is a little different. But I believe that's something that Notre Dame staff is getting used to and has no problem with. Committed very early, which isn't a bad sign, but there's a lot of time left. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's great to have 20 commits on May 1st in 2024. The first signing day isn't till December. There's still 7.5 months until we actually sign on the dotted line. So unfortunately, a lot of these guys, hopefully not a lot, but a few of these guys that are committed right now probably won't sign on the dotted line for Notre Dame. I'm hopeful that Duce Knight is one of the people that will. And Dallas Golden even talked about it when he was being interviewed after he committed. And he said Duce was a big reason that he committed to Notre Dame. Duce was really, recruiting him to Notre Dame to go with him, which is a great sign for Notre Dame. Because if Duce Knight really was, 50-50 or even 60-40, I'm committed to Notre Dame, but this other chick looks good. I don't think he would be recruiting kids as heavily as he is to go to Notre Dame. Having said that, some of Duce's comments about his ongoing recruitment by schools like Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina, and recently Colorado are not exactly what you want to hear if you're a Notre Dame fan. He said he talks to Ole Miss coaches at least once a day, and they're all selling him on, you're a Mississippi kid. More people will come to watch you if you're in Mississippi, come to the hometown school, all that stuff. And then his brother actually played for Coach DeBoer at Indiana. So he's known Coach DeBoer, who's now at Alabama, for a long time. And the whole recruiting pitch there is, hey, you're a lefty quarterback. You remind me of Michael Penix. Did you see what we just did with Michael Penix? And if we have time, we'll get to the draft stuff later. But Michael Penix was a top 10 pick. I think I can turn you into the next left-handed top 10 pick, right? And so those sales pitches are all going on, and they're going to continue going on and keep pressuring him to flip schools. South Carolina is doing the same thing with Spencer Rattler. Now, fortunately, Spencer Rattler didn't go to like the 5th round, so there's not going to be a whole lot of added ammunition there. But Colorado just offered him, I think, 2 weeks after he committed to Notre Dame, or a couple weeks ago. And so they're kind of the new player to the game, but they're doing the same thing that DeBoer is doing at Alabama with Penix. They're saying, hey, you remind me a lot of this Shedeur Sanders kid. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's projected to be a potential top 5 pick next year. I think you play a lot like him. And I think if you come to Colorado and play for Coach Prime, you could be a top 5 pick yourself. So there's a lot of hard sales going on. The one thing that I think is going to separate Notre Dame and potentially allow them to keep him is the way that I think Marcus and the staff has treated him the whole time. He said they've recruited me harder than anybody else. They've told me from day one, I'm their number one guy, not their number one quarterback on the board, the number one guy. You're the one that is going to drive this entire draft class, which is a lot to say to a 17-year-old kid, right? That gives him a big head, that makes him feel really good. But it also is kind of putting yourself out there, letting him know you kind of dictate a lot. So it could go sideways on Notre Dame in that respect, where the kid could turn around and go, Oh, I'm the number one guy. I'm gonna need another 500,000 in that NIL money in order to stay committed. And I mean, there's no way to check what his offers are elsewhere. So if he's your number one guy and you're Notre Dame and your entire recruiting class kind of hangs on this kid staying committed to you, you probably can't find it, right?
Because I think you have to come up with the money because, Alabama, like, and also, Jackson Dart has a private jet deal. And, those are things to look at. And Alabama's not, they're not light in the pockets as well. So I just feel like there's a big underlying issue with that. I mean, it's great that they got these two top kids committed, but like you said, there's a lot of time in between that
Oh, yeah.
signing day and now.
Oh, there's a ton of time. And the thing is, like, and that's why people get really hung up on these early recruiting rankings and things like that. And like, if you just look at them, right now, according to On3, which I view as one of the better sites. I mean, 24/7 On3, they all have their own rankings. But right now on On3, Notre Dame has the 5th ranked recruiting class nationally, which is awesome. That's great. You want to be top 5, ideally top 5, minimally top 10 is the goal. The only issue I have is they're currently 5th, right? Well, they have 20 recruits committed right now. 0 5-stars, which isn't a huge issue. You'd like to bag at least 1 or 2 5-stars, which there's still a potential for that, I guess. But if you look at the 4 classes ahead of them, you have Ohio State at number 1, 13 commits. LSU at number 2, 12. USC at number 2, 12. Clemson at number 4, 11. There's a lot of weight being put into the fact that Notre Dame's class is already at 20, which is driving them up the rankings right now. And unfortunately, these other schools like Alabama 6, Georgia 7, Texas 8, Florida State 10, these other schools, Florida State's at 10 and they only have 4 commits. Okay. These other schools, like those 4 I just named, are going to get at least 20 to 25 kids. And that's going to drive their ranking up above Notre Dame. And so Notre Dame really has to fill out this draft class or this recruiting class with high-end recruits. You can't have these 20 recruits, 12 4-stars, which is awesome. 12 4-stars, that's excellent. 8 3-stars, okay. But your other 5 recruits, if you take 25 in the class, need to be a mix of 5 and 3 stars. And that's going to be really difficult to do. So, and that's assuming you don't lose anybody. With 20 recruits on May 1st that are committed, you're probably going to lose a handful of those to NIL deals somewhere else, guys flipping because they want to stay home, guys flipping because their girl decided to go to a different school, whatever it is, right? So if you look right now, top 100 recruits, the targets that are looked at as have Notre Dame even remotely close or remotely in the conversation. You have Dorian Brew at 25. He's the number 4 corner in the nation, 95% crystal ball to Ohio State, 3% to Notre Dame. Okay. I'm not saying crystal balls are always right, but when it's that heavy one school, he's probably going to Ohio State. Now, there's an outside chance Notre Dame could come in and flip him, and that's why I included him as well as the next guy, Trey McNutt, who's the number 26 player, number 2 safety in the country, also about 97% Ohio State, 2% Notre Dame. Those are the 2 guys that are potential 5-stars that are even considering Notre Dame. So it's going to take a lot to flip those crystal balls. And again, crystal balls aren't guarantees. I get that. But if they're that heavy, usually you can count on it being kind of right. Now, after that, you got Ivan Taylor, number 53 in the country, number 6 safety. He's a hard commit to Notre Dame, and we'll talk about who he is in a minute, but he's a big-time recruit, and you got to keep him. He's got to be your cornerstone along with Duce Knight. After that, you have Duce Knight at 59, number 7 quarterback, hard commit to Notre Dame. And then you have, I missed Derek Meadows, who's the number 51 player in the country, number 7 wide receiver, and he's about a 90% crystal ball to Notre Dame. So you got to lock that kid in because he's going to be your closest to a top 50 player that you can get. And as we talked about with Dallas Golden, potentially looked at as a wide receiver candidate, the reason people are talking about that is because right now Notre Dame's class is very weak at wide receiver. And so you got to lock in somebody like Derek Meadows, who could be a really excellent wide receiver for you. And then beyond that, you have Madden Fariamo, who's the number 74 player, 7 linebacker. He's between USC and Notre Dame. We're similar crystal ball percentages. Hopefully you can lock him down. Damian Shankly, who's the number 87 player, 13 edge rusher. He's crystal ball to Notre Dame. Mark Zachary, number 94 player, top 10 corner, crystal ball Notre Dame. You got to lock in as many of those top 100 players as you can, or this recruiting ranking that you have right now is going to tank significantly, especially if you lose somebody like Duce Knight, right? And then, I mean, right outside the top 100, you have Dallas Golden, who's 104, and Christopher Burgess, who's 106. So those guys, and some of them in other rankings, they're top 100, so I'll count them. But you're looking at, 7 to 8 guys in the top 100, but only 4 or 5 of them are committed right now. So you got to close in on those other guys and really lock them in order to really fill out this recruiting class. Outside of that, fill it in with 3 stars, do what you got to do to get your numbers. And some of those 3 stars are really good players. The one of them is Jerome Bettis Jr. Another one is, hold on, I just had him. He was Elijah Burris. So you have some potential there with 3 stars that have some pedigree that maybe are a little undervalued in the recruiting cycle. Hopefully you can develop them and things like that. But this recruiting class has the potential to be a really good one, or it could turn into a very mediocre one.
With all of that being said, the biggest thing I think with this class in particular is that there is no help coming at the wide receiver position, which I think that's,
I mean, right now the wide receiver, this class wide receiver wise is definitely weak. It's not top notch. I mean, like I said, you have Elijah Burris, you have Sean Terry. Both those kids are barely top 100 at the position, right? Now we'll talk about Elijah Burris in a minute. I think he has the potential to maybe be a little under recruited as far as his star ranking and his position ranking. But outside of that, you're really this wide receiver class really hangs on landing Derek Meadows. Derek Meadows, a top 50 player in the country, really, really good player, has everything that you want in a receiver. He's from Bishop Gorman out in Vegas, 6'5", 185 pounds. You can probably bulk him up to 200. He's got elite speed. He can get open. He loves running deep routes. His hands are solid. He's he just won the state title in the 300-meter hurdle. He also helped Bishop Gorman win the 4x400 state title. So dude's got speed. He's got athleticism. Again, though, you got to land him. Right now, On3 has him 86.5% crystal ball to Notre Dame. But the big dogs are hanging in the weeds. So you got the next 3 are Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. If Alabama and Georgia aren't recruiting them heavily right now because maybe they have other targets at wide receiver, if those wide receivers go to a place like, let's say, Ohio State, because we know Ohio State's going to land some elite talent at wide receiver, they do every year, then Alabama and Georgia are going to increase their press on this kid and really sell him on what they do. So if I'm Marcus Freeman right now, if I'm the offensive staff at Notre Dame, Derek Meadows is my main target right now. I'm putting everything I've got into him and trying to get a commitment out of him as quickly as possible, and then continuing to call him and talk to him every day as much as I can. because I think without somebody like Derek Meadows, and there's other receivers that are out there, they just don't have Notre Dame very highly on their list. But that doesn't mean that you can't come in late and flip a guy and get a guy. It just has to be the right situation. But you got to land somebody who's a top 100 recruit, who's top 10, top 15 at the wide receiver position nationally, like a Derek Meadows.
Right. And with all of that being said, I think because more than likely, just projecting into the future, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably CJ Carr is going to start next year.
I think there's a definite possibility that happens, yeah.
And I think he's going to need targets. And that is the only reason I bring that up. And also on another point, while we're here, the transfer portal, I have not seen Angeli hit the portal. And to me, that secures him as the backup.
Yeah, I think Angeli is the backup. I think that's pretty much in stone. I think it makes the most sense. I don't think Marcus or the offensive staff wants to roll out there with a true freshman at backup quarterback in CJ Carr. And I just don't think they've seen enough out of Minchie to promote him to that position. Now, that doesn't mean anything for after Riley Leonard's gone or, anything like that. But I think Angeli will be the backup, and I think Angeli will be given the opportunity to be the starter next year unless he gets beat out. I don't think they necessarily are 100% saying CJ Carr is going to start his sophomore year or his, redshirt freshman year if he doesn't play much this year. But I think that they'll go into next spring with Angeli being the leader in the clubhouse, and then it'll still be a competition. They're not just going to name a starter, but I think that's why you haven't seen Angeli hit the portal, is because he knows he's secure in his position this year. He's going to be the backup, and it's going to give him a leg up going into the competition next winter and spring.
Right. And the Taylor kid that is the top recruit, you got a little info on him?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting, and this could mean absolutely nothing, or it could be a sign of kind of people that know football's confidence in Marcus Freeman and the program that is Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, I don't know if you know this, Notre Dame is currently former NFL player U, meaning NFL players that were very successful in the NFL, their sons are going to Notre Dame. Similar to how, Marvin Harrison Jr. went to Ohio State because Marvin Harrison saw Brian Hartline and Ryan Day as the best fit for developing their son. And he knew Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be a pro no matter where he went. But he saw the best opportunity to get the most exposure for his son and to get him to be a top 5 pick, which he was, at Ohio State. So if you look at this right now, on Notre Dame's roster, you have Jordan Clark, who is the son of Pittsburgh Steelers safety Ryan Clark. You have Kennedy Urlacher. If that name sounds familiar, that's Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher's son. Now you have Ivan Taylor, who is the top recruit that Notre Dame has signed. He's the son of Pittsburgh Steeler Ike Taylor. You have Elijah Burris, who is the son of Pittsburgh Steeler Plaxico Burris. And then you have Jerome Bettis Jr., who is the son of, you guessed it, Pittsburgh Steeler Jerome Bettis. So all those 5 players, and there's some other ones that are less known NFL players that are also there, like Benjamin Morrison, who's the son of Daryl Morrison, Bryce Young, who's the son of Bryant Young. So all these NFL players are entrusting their son to go play for Marcus Freeman and the staff at Notre Dame right now, and they know football, and they are not going to let their son make a decision that they think would impact their ability to get better at football and become NFL players, right? So Ivan Taylor, it looks like an excellent recruit. Ike Taylor was a good defensive back for 11 years in the NFL. He couldn't catch very well. Hopefully his son's a little better at that. But and then obviously Plaxico Burress was a probably all pro, at least Pro Bowl wide receiver. Jerome Bettis, he's a legacy. Obviously he went to Notre Dame, but also he was an excellent running back in the NFL. So that's just an interesting stat. I thought they have, total players 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 total players are the son of former NFL players. So that tells me that there's a lot of confidence by people that know football in what Marcus Freeman is doing. And so that should lead you to have some results on the field. But obviously, who knows if any of those guys are going to be as good as their father. Like Bronny James, never going to be LeBron James, right? He's not. So you can't count on that. But I just like the fact that Notre Dame is recognizing that and attacking that, but also the fact that these guys there's a few Hall of Famers on that list that are telling their kids, yeah, go to Notre Dame. If you want to play in the league, if you want to get better at football, I believe in what this guy's doing.
Right. 100%. And I guess we can transition off of recruiting and bring up a very interesting topic. They dug up Knute Rockne and brought him back to campus.
Yeah, so that's a topic that's gotten a lot of comments and a lot of public publicity, I guess. But so here's the thing: the Rockne family is the ones that put this in motion. So he died in, I think it was 1931 in a plane crash or something like that. So he's been dead 93 years. It's not like he just died yesterday. But at the time, the graveyard or the place that he would have been buried on Notre Dame's campus didn't have a certain level. I forget the name, but it's a certain level of care. And so Mrs. Rockne, Knute's wife, was concerned that his grave site wouldn't be cared for properly, the grass mowed, trash cleaned up, and things like that. So they had him buried outside South Bend, or in South Bend, but outside campus at, I believe it's called the Heritage Cemetery or something like that. Because of that reason, that it was a newer cemetery, it had the level of care that she wanted. So they had him buried there. She didn't want his gravesite to turn into a memorial where people were going there and, leaving whiskey bottles and, hanging out after games and things like that. However, that's exactly what it turned into there. All the time they would go there, there'd be, whiskey bottles, there'd be cigar butts, there'd be, his headstone was deteriorating. And so the family talked to Notre Dame. And since then, the gravesite at Notre Dame had, upped its level of care and security. And so, yeah, they dug up him and Mrs. Rockne and I believe their son and their grandson or something like that, and moved them all to Notre Dame's campus. It's a little weird. I mean, it's a little, I'm not 100% on board with digging up graves and moving them after, the deceased has essentially decided where they wanted to be. However, if that's what the family wanted, Notre Dame was absolutely 100% right to make it happen, because he's obviously outside of Ara Parseghian and some of the older guys, he's the one of the faces of Notre Dame still to this day. 93 years later after passing, he's still known by students on campus. He's still talked about whenever anybody talks about Notre Dame. So honestly, I'm hesitant to do next time what to do next time I'm on campus, because now that I know Mrs. Rockne's wishes were for it to not be a memorial where people went and visited and hung out and stuff, I don't know if I should visit it, but now that it's on campus, I kind of want to. But I'll probably just go to the grotto and light a candle for him instead.
I don't know how to feel about. I don't know. I don't. This is a kind of a tough one for me, but I don't know how you justify digging something up after almost 100 years and moving it. I don't.
Well, and yeah, and here's my thing, dude. Like, I'm sure, like, caskets and stuff now are made with compounds and fiberglass and shit that can withstand the elements for 100 years. I'm sure we have the technology to do that. What the hell did they dig up? 1931? What do you think they were making caskets out of? Just some cedar? Like some redwood? Like what are we talking about? How has that not decomposed and been infested by worms and shit? Like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe somebody who is watching is an undertaker and can educate me on this. But I have I don't have a problem with it if that's what the family wanted, but I have a problem with if I'm a worker that's tasked with digging this up, dude, what am I about to dig up? Like, is it even gonna, like, can I move it? Like, how do you have to like go so far out and so far deep that you just move the whole plot of land? Like, I don't know how it works, but I would be very concerned. And then what if you're digging and you hit something and it's like a bone and you fucked up the remains? Like, that's not something I want on my conscience.
For me, I just think you should have just left it there. Left it where he was at. I don't think. I don't know who came up with this idea, but it's just a strange idea. I seen it in the news, and I thought, we could at least, talk about it a little bit. But I just, I'm not in the business of going to. If he's on campus, I don't think that changes my opinion at all.
No, I mean, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just like I said, I think it's the grandkids, maybe even the great grandkids at this point. Who knows? No, probably grandkids because, well, if he died in 1931, my grandpa was born in 1931. So, yeah, it could be great grandkids. I don't know. Anyways, whoever it was what they wanted. And the problem I have with that is like, that's cool. That's what you want now, 93 years later. You have no fucking clue what he wanted or what his wife wanted. So why are you making decisions about it? Like, that would be like if like my grandfather and my grandmother are buried in Dublin, Ohio. And they've been gone for, God, this is bad. I don't even know. 5 years for my grandpa, I think. Something like that. No. 7 years? Yeah, because I think he passed before Zach got fired. So it had to be 2017 or at least 2018 before he got fired. Anyways, regardless of that, it's been 6-7 years for my grandpa and like 12 for my grandma. But that would be like after my mom passes away, right? Because that's his daughter. After she passes away, and then they've been dead for 50 years, 60 years, however, whatever time it is. And me and my brothers go to Ohio State and we're like, hey, I think Earl really wanted to be buried on campus. Can we move it to campus? Like, there is not a chance in hell that any of us grandkids would ever do that. Because, first of all, my grandma and grandpa picked out their burial plots. If they want to be buried on campus, they probably would have picked that.
I just don't know how you can walk into a room or just wake up one day and say, you know what I think we should do? I think we should move grandpa. Like,
yeah. And so the only caveat I'll give, or the only like, I'll give them grace on this. Maybe it was well documented that Knute wanted to be buried on campus, but after he passed, his wife researched it and decided that that's not up to par. We can't do it. That'll be terrible. And then 90 years later, campus has changed. The technology has changed. The level of care and security has changed. and now it's a feasible option. I guess if you knew and it was documented that his wishes were to be buried on campus, and now it's a possibility where 90 years ago it wasn't, I guess maybe, okay, you move him. I still am uncomfortable with it, but it's not my decision. So
yes, that's neither of our decisions. I just think I would have a tough time. Like, could you imagine calling up your brother and be like, "Hey, I think we should do this"? He'd probably stare at his phone and say, "What's wrong with you?"
Bro, yeah, if any of you know my brother, that would not be a conversation that ends well for me.
I think you would be having some deep
Oh,
conversations on a couch.
He would,
up to him.
Dude, he would immediately be like, no, you're not doing that, first of all. Second of all, if you try to do it, I'm going to beat your ass and then have you committed.
Oh man, I just seen that and I thought we've got to talk about it.
It's wild. It'll be, I mean, hopefully it's, I have no idea where it is exactly or how it's done. Hopefully it's done in a, good way, in a cool way. And my biggest hope is that, hey, Notre Dame fans, if you're listening, respect it. His wife didn't want it to be a memorial. Respect the shit out of it. If you go visit it, which I'm not saying don't, be respectful. Don't leave a mess. Don't go there drinking and breaking bottles and smoking. If you want to smoke a cigar a little bit away from it, and then take your fucking cigar with you and throw it away. Don't leave shit there. Make it nice. And I'm sure the university and the Browns crew and everything is going to be focused on keeping it clean and pristine. But I'm telling you right now, if you go to it, just for the love of God, be respectful.
And that just goes with anything, because and that's why a lot of people that are celebrities have private services, and everything's private for that.
Here's the shit that I know I'm gonna see that's gonna piss me off is you're gonna have these dumbass kids and this dumbass generation making TikToks and shit on his grave. And I promise you, if you do that, you're a piece of shit. All right? Don't go there to make yourself famous on TikTok or Reels or whatever. If you truly care about Notre Dame football, you care about the program, the university, go there, pay your respects, and move the fuck on. Don't make a dumb TikTok dance on Knute Rockney's grave. All right?
100%. I can't agree more. Moving on from
sorry,
talk.
kind of went off on that, but a little bit. But yeah, let's move back to some Notre Dame football stuff that's not 93 years past.
Here's another interesting caveat. Do you think Sam Hartman hurt his draft stock by transferring to Notre Dame and not having a stellar year? Should he have either came out last year, or should he have stayed at Wake Forest?
I don't think he hurt his draft stock by transferring to Notre Dame. Now, I'd have to go to last year's draft class and review the quarterbacks that were taken. I believe he was a draftable quarterback last year. I believe he was this year too. But I don't think he hurt his draft stock. I think the biggest thing that happened is, and this would have been all proven if they watched the tape at Wake Forest, if they watched him at his pro day, if they watched him during the combine or anything. The biggest thing that happened is NFL scouts and front offices realize he's a project. Like, he's not going to be, first of all, quote me on it, he's never going to be an NFL starter unless somebody gets injured and he has to be. He's never going to be somebody's QB1. He's not. You look at him, he's got good athleticism, not great. He's mobile, not exceptional. He's got a good arm, not great. He's got pocket presence. He's accurate when everything is right and he can use his mechanics properly, he's got the ability to throw off platform. Sometimes it's good, sometimes he misses wildly. I mean, I think everything you saw on tape at Wake Forest is what you saw at Notre Dame. So I don't know if he hurt his draft stock. I just think he was never a top tier NFL prospect.
For me, when you watch Sam Hartman play, he makes the average play. He doesn't do anything to jump off the page at you per se.
Yeah.
He got picked up by the Commanders, which I think he'll get better if he can make that
Yeah.
roster.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say it's not going to be super difficult to make that roster. They're obviously their top quarterback's Jaden Daniels. They took him 2 overall. That's QB1. That's the future. There's no denying it. After that, I believe. Who is their backup? Shit, I just had it. Anyways, it's a veteran guy. I don't know why his name's escaping me right now. I just had it, but he's a veteran guy. He's going to be there to kind of coach up Jaden Daniels on how to be a pro, and that's going to be QB2. After that, you have Jeff Driscoll and Jake from State Farm. So those two for QB3, I think Sam Hartman has a decent chance to beat them out and be QB3 and at least be given a chance. Jeff Driscoll has been a journeyman. He bounces around from roster to roster. He's not proven that he can ever be reliable as a backup. He's always usually QB3 on a team that really, if you get to QB3, you're fucked. Jake Fromm has never been anything in the NFL. He's never going to be anything in the NFL. So I think Washington, as long as Sam Hartman comes out and shows what he can do well during, OTAs, rookie minicamp, all that stuff, I think he's going to be given an opportunity as QB3, because the thing with the NFL is QB3 is really nothing. If the first 2 go down and you're not confident in QB3, I promise you there's somebody who's not on the team that you can pick up, like Joe Flacco last year for the Browns. So there's always going to be guys that you can go get if you're not confident in QB3. So Washington would make sense to save money by keeping the rookie. He got a pretty good undrafted free agent deal, $20,000 signing bonus, which is nice. Put that in the bank right away. $225,000 a year contract. So he's got the opportunity. I don't know. I don't see him lasting at Washington because I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a really good quarterback. And once he proves himself as QB1, they're going to tailor the backups to be more of that type of quarterback, so they don't have to change the offense as much hopefully it's if Jaden Daniels goes down, right? So he'll get a chance at Washington to be QB3. He'll probably bounce around, maybe gets a QB2 spot eventually and get some playing time in the preseason and some time, if injuries and things like that. But he's probably out of the league in 5 years.
Also, the quarterback that you couldn't come up with would be Marcus Mariota.
That's it. That's right. I Heisman winner, bro. Which again, that fits more into Jaden Daniels' skill set. Now, Jaden Daniels is a far better athlete, far better passer. But if they had to go to the backup, Marcus Mariota is able to run more of the offense that Jaden Daniels can run than Hartman, Driscoll, or Fromm, right? So that makes sense that would be QB2. But I don't think Hartman is Hartman. He could surprise people and have a career in the NFL as a backup, which is not a bad living. I mean, look at who was it? It was, I forget, but there's backup quarterbacks that have made 10, $20 million over their career just being backups. So
Matt Flynn.
Yeah, Matt Flynn's one. Yeah. And so, that wouldn't be a bad life, but I just think with his limitations on his throwing and his ability to analyze defenses and make the right reads and put the ball where it needs to be, I don't see a long NFL career. Now, luckily, he has a degree from Wake Forest, and he went to Notre Dame for a year. So, dude's not lacking in education. He'll be fine. He'll get a job. He'll be okay, and he's going to make $225,000 a year minimum until then.
Right. Before we move on to the highly touted draft pick Joe Alt, if you're watching on Twitter or watching on YouTube, hit the like and hit the subscribe and comment.
Let us know. Let us know if we're wrong. Let us know where we're right. We can start a segment where we were wrong, where we were right. But yeah, like and subscribe. Also, if you're on YouTube, follow us. We're now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, PodBeans. All the links are in the description. Go ahead and follow us there if you like to listen to your podcast that route. But yeah, absolutely, go out there and support the show.
All right, we'll get into it. Joe Alt, taken by the Chargers. Dad played in the league. We were on that. On that kick. I think he got drafted by the best possible situation with the LA Chargers because he's going to be utilized a lot, and Jim Harbaugh is going to ask him to do a lot. And I think to me, he reminds me a lot of a more athletic Joe Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's Joe Thomas 2.0. I mean, I don't know if it's a hot take or a bold prediction, but he might as well get fitted for his gold jacket now. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. That guy is everything you want in an offensive tackle, in a lineman, in a person, in a work ethic, everything. So the Chargers got an absolute stud of a tackle. I think I don't necessarily know if the situation would have mattered. Honestly, I think he would have been a stud no matter where he went, just like Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas went to the worst franchise in football outside of the Lions for his entire career and set the record for most snaps consecutively, was a consensus all-pro, all-pro bowler for basically every year of his career. And so I think that's what you're getting in Joel. The kid is just a stand-up kid, stand-up man, I guess. That it couldn't have gone any better for either Joe Alt or the Chargers. And he went to a coach that values O-linemen. He went to a coach that values the run game. He values exactly what Joe Alt excels at, which is blocking. And Jim Harbaugh had the comment that, a lot of people are kind of on him for not getting a weapon, not going out and getting a skill player. He said, look, we view offensive linemen as weapons because if you have the best offensive line in the NFL, you can usually win a lot of games. The Dallas Cowboys did it for years. They had Zeke and the best offensive line in football. And then Dak Prescott, who's proven he's a good quarterback, but he can't win big games. And they went out and they won a lot of games. They didn't win a Super Bowl or anything, which I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be a better coach than, goddamn, I'm struggling with names tonight. But, the quarterback or the coach that was there, Jason Garrett, there we go. He's a better coach than Jason Garrett. I would contend he's probably a better coach than Mike
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Yeah, there you go. Almost said McDaniel. But Mike McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy's got the Super Bowl ring, but he has Aaron Rodgers to thank for that, and he only got one with that guy. So, you got your quarterback. You got Herbert. You got, you brought in your running backs are solid. A little bit of question marks at wide receivers because you lost Keenan Allen and you didn't address it in the first round, which a lot of people wanted them to. But Joe Alt is going to be the cornerstone of that offensive line for the next 15 years. And he's not going to miss significant snaps. And I just like the guy's mentality. I like he reminds me of Joe Thomas in that way. Like Joe Thomas missed draft day because he had to go fishing with his dad. And he went 3 overall. Like, that's the kind of guy I want at tackle. That's the kind of guy I want working every day with my offensive line. So that was a great draft pick by the Chargers. and that's a Hall of Famer right there.
I think he was probably, to me, the number one, probably the safest prospect in the draft.
Yeah, I think him and Marv. I think they were the two with the highest ceilings or the highest floors guaranteed. Neighbors could be a better receiver than Marv, but I think his floor's lower than Marv and maybe his ceiling's higher. But outside of that, and then, your quarterbacks are, quarterbacks have a wide gap between ceiling and floor. And that's just, it's proven every year. So you knew that a lot of quarterbacks were going to go early because of how thirsty NFL teams are for quarterbacks. But if you were not one of those teams that was dying of thirst for a quarterback, you were better off going with Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, which is what those teams did.
And I guess we can start wrapping up on this point.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing with the draft that was, how did you feel about the Michael Penix pick at 8?
The Penix thing, I see why the Falcons did it, because I'm going to assume when they gave Cousins the physical, he passed it. But I think they could have found things they didn't like. And I think if you're Atlanta, you have that brand new stadium and you have a fan base that the only thing you needed last year to win was a quarterback. And I think they're not taking any chances on not having a quarterback, because if you look at that division, you have Derek Carr, which has been not the greatest.
He's been Derek Carr, yeah.
Not the greatest. You have Baker Mayfield
and Bryce,
and Bryce Young looked absolutely horrendous last year. I don't know if that's going to be salvageable. And then you have the Saints,
that's
Bucks,
all of them.
And Panthers in that division. That division is one quarterback away. 8 or 9 games will win that division.
Yeah. I guess my only issue, they need an edge rusher bad, and they need some help on the defensive end. You look at their draft history over the past 5 years, and you just really have to question what they're doing. You took Kyle London or Kyle Pitts, 4 overall, Drake London. You could have had Jamar Chase. You could have had all these different weapons that they passed on, and to take these guys higher than they went. And now you just signed Kirk Cousins to 4 years, $100 million guaranteed. And you want to, what I miss a whole lot, Richie. We talked Notre Dame recruiting. We talked Knute Rockne being dug up. We talked Sam Hartman going to the NFL, but not really. And now we're talking a little NFL draft, but scroll back and catch up. But my thing is, you didn't address an immediate need for your team. And if you view your team as a quarterback away, you got your quarterback.
Well,
and the other thing, you drafted a 25, 26-year-old quarterback with 55 knee injuries, and then you sit around in the press conference and say, well, he might sit for 4 or 5 years. Dude's going to be 30 before he starts a game.
Yeah, that's the old Whedon adage, and thanks a lot, COVID. Well, the thing that I think will be interesting, and I think people need to keep an eye on, is I think that Micah Parsons is going to get moved out of Dallas, because there's a lot of reports that sound like they are just
people are getting real sick of him. Yeah, people are getting real tired of that attitude.
And I don't know if it'll be a definite thing, because I have no insider knowledge on this.
I can promise you one thing: Micah Parsons isn't going anywhere. He's too good. You when somebody's that good, you deal with it, and you tell the players that are complaining, hey, listen, If you can outperform him, we'll move him. But he's a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. You don't move that. I'm sorry. You just don't.
Right. Unless you get a big haul.
Yeah, you'd need a king's ransom. Like I'm talking RG3 level king's ransom, like 3 first-round picks. And even then, if I'm Dallas, I'm in win now mode. What do you? I got to re-sign Dak soon.
Well, I don't. Here's just my Cowboys, because I think the Cowboys are the most fascinating franchise in the NFL. I do not think they are going to retain McCarthy or Dak. I think it's going to be a complete wholesale rebuild, and I think you're going to sell Parsons off. You sell Parsons to acquire draft capital. That's just it.
If you do that,
And
but like that sounds like way too smart of a move for somebody like Jerry Jones.
I mean, Jerry is kind of a moron, but
Well, that would take actual self-reflection and admitting that you didn't build what you thought you built, and he is the only one responsible. And so, this is the problem with these billionaires, these extremely wealthy, successful people. Guys, if you are Jerry Jones, if you're Dan Gilbert, Jimmy Haslam, whoever you are that is worth $10 billion, then you buy a franchise, and what do you mean I'm wrong? I don't know football. I've never been wrong of anything in my life. Everything I did turned to gold, and you're going to tell me I don't know how to do this? Okay. And so they have a hard time admitting when they're wrong. And so I don't know. I think they'll move on from Mike McCarthy after this year if they don't make a run in the playoffs. I agree with that. I think the other thing with Jerry Jones, he has a lot of loyalty to people he likes. He kept Jason Garrett on for far longer than he should have because he liked him.
Well, and also
he loves Dak Prescott.
I think he loves Dak Prescott, but here's the caveat. I'm going out here and I'm calling this early. There is a guy that has a son that is going to be a quarterback coming out in the draft.
Yeah.
They are from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Do not rule that out. That's all I'm saying. Because if anybody out of the 32 owners that would pull the trigger on that would do it, it would be Jerry Jones.
And
could you imagine the circus that would be?
Yeah. And Dion would make sure that he didn't even have to trade up to get him. He'd be like, hey, you're picking at 7? That's cool. We'll tell the other 6 teams that if you draft my son, we're not signing with you. Because he's already said he's going to control where Shedeur goes. So I could see it. Sure, go ahead. Turn Dallas into even more of a circus. Go ahead. It's never going to work. Jerry Jones has his Super Bowl because of Jimmy Johnson, and the worst thing he ever did was get rid of him.
Hey,
now,
Richie did.
Maybe the best thing he ever did was he brought Zeke back, which, yeah, he's wearing 15, buddy. Is he going to tuck it into his shoulder pads and belly shirt it?
Oh, that.
He might be a little old for that now. He might have a little bit of an old man gut now.
Yeah.
Not quite as chiseled as he once was back in his 20-year-old days.
But I guess with that, I ain't got nothing else. We hit the hour mark, Carter, and everybody out there listening, if you hear loud motorcycles going by, that is my neighbor.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, go follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. It's the Andre Duke Show or the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Just search it. Go follow us. Give us a like, subscribe, and help us keep blowing this up. We're really trying to go big this off season to get prepared for the season where we can really have some fun and do some things with you guys.
Right. And we're on the road. We're on the road to getting there. And maybe if we can get enough get enough likes and subscribers, we could possibly have a meetup in South Bend somewhere at a disclosed location. So that is
Yeah,
what we're
absolutely.
working. That's what
I'm
we're working
definitely going to
towards.
at least one game. I forget what game it was. I think it's the Louisville game that I'm planning to go to for sure. I'd love to go to Florida State. We'll see if I can make that happen with the kids and everything like that. But I'll definitely be in South Bend. So come hang out. You know, we'll tailgate, have fun.
Right on, right on. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end it. And Carter, stick around. We'll have a little
Yeah,
chat,
absolutely,
and
man.
then that'll be it. But everybody, thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe, like Carter said, and everybody have a good night.